Good evening, everyone. My name is Watson Millison, and I, on behalf of my team, am here to discuss best practices of sustainable freight delivery to recommend to the Strategic Planning Unit for the Municipality of Tel Aviv, Israel. Here's tonight's agenda. I'll start by going over our project background, the methodology, we'll dive into our recommendations, and then I'll conclude with next steps. So I can safely assume that everyone here has received a package before. It arrives on your doorstep, but do you ever wonder, how did it get here? The package moves from a sender or distributor and through long-distance freight transport, and if you live in a city, it enters a zone called the last mile. This last mile zone is the subject of our presentation tonight. According to Carbon Fund, if you ship a 5-pound package 3,000 miles by air, it contributes 12 pounds of CO2, or 3.5 pounds if shipped by truck. Now let's imagine this rate on a global scale, as there's millions of packages delivered every day. This volume is steadily increasing as e-commerce continues to rise, and as a result, this last mile has become more complicated. Economies are improving, population are increasing, it's getting messy. Infrastructure challenges and congested streets only makes this more complicated. So Tel Aviv is the heart of the largest metropolitan area in Israel, and it's the cultural and financial center. 500,000 vehicles enter and leave the city, most during the morning rush hour. And this creates competition of different modes of transportation over the paved roads. In response to this competition, the city has created special lanes for public transportation, they've created bike paths, and they've widened the sidewalks for pedestrians. The operation of commercial vehicles in the city is causing conflict in the public space with the bike lanes and the public transportation lanes, and it's contributing noise and air pollution. In addition, there are no designated parking zones for commercial vehicles, and this results in a lot of double parking, which leads to further congestion. Another important thing to note is that there are currently no emission standards for commercial vehicles. However, the city is beginning to look at implementing same levels for EU standards for similar vehicles. So the growth in e-commerce and deficiencies of commercial freight planning has made it a challenge for private companies to enter cities and deliver packages on time. Our task is to provide Tel Aviv with potential last-mile solutions based on best practices worldwide and hoping to improve the sustainability of city freight movement. So let's review the current delivery situation in Tel Aviv. Goods are arriving at a high-capacity freight station or port. It goes to a distribution center, and then commercial vehicles are delivering the packages to customers and businesses. So the Tel Aviv Strategic Planning Unit is looking to implement a comprehensive freight plan. Phase 1 is our capstone project. The planning unit has not yet planned for overall city logistics, and they're just starting to explore basic solutions. And these basic solutions can be freight parking zones or designated times for unloading and unloading for commercial vehicles, like we have in New York City. But nothing's been implemented yet. And while the city is striving to proactively approach the search for solutions and alleviate the current congestion and delivery challenges, we've been tasked with a benchmarking study to aid their effort. Our client specifically instructed us to look at best practices worldwide. We're going to look at distribution centers and how these physical spaces, either owned by municipalities or private entities, use these spaces for freight movement with the goal of reducing hazards and conflicts from operations in the city. So Tel Aviv is going to need to engage their key stakeholders. There's the government, there's private freight companies, and then there's a local community. We began by looking at port cities, cities with high commercial traffic, and cities that our client suggested. And this resulted in a list of 48 cities. To shorten our list, we looked at cities that had successfully implemented solutions or had a sustainability plan or a freight plan. And this whittled our list down to 8 cities with 15 solutions. And once our client told us to look specifically at constructed spaces, so anything built over land, that we were able to take these 15 solutions and reorganize them into 3 recommendations: micro-distribution centers, mobile package distribution, and parcel lockers. These recommendations are not mutually exclusive, and they can work in tandem. Again, we were asked to look at proven solutions from around the world that are replicable. We looked at what other cities have done through the perspective of what Tel Aviv can learn from these successes. So the first recommendation we're going to look at are mobile distribution centers. These are physical spaces of various sizes, and they're strategically located in neighborhoods in a city, close to major roads and highways. They can be in a public or private location, like a shopping mall, a parking garage, a residential building, but it's within a permanent structure, and it handles a variety of cargo. Let's talk about Beaugrenelle in Paris. This is a shopping complex just south of the Eiffel Tower and just off the Seine. They converted 2 levels of an existing parking garage and turned it into a micro-distribution center. This was a partnership between a logistics company, Sogeris, Chronopost, a freight company, and the city of Paris, who contributed 500,000 euros for initial development. As you can see, this solution covers 1 arrondissement in Paris and 2 suburbs. There's a 38% reduction in total mileage and a 70% reduction in carbon gas emissions. In addition to these environmental gains, it's a much safer process because you're not loading and unloading in the street. And it's much more efficient because you're able to load these vehicles much more effectively. Second recommendation is mobile package distribution. Think of this as a pop-up mobile package distribution platform. It's a 2-part system. There's the hub, and then there's the cargo cycle or the electric bike that carries out the last mile delivery. This can be used for customer pickup, or it can carry out further deliveries. Most are found in cities, and they range in size from 1 to 2 shipping containers. We looked at a private solution where TNT, a shipping company, wanted to experiment with a new pickup and delivery system, and they called it the TNT Mobile Depot. The city supported this pilot program because they wanted to help TNT prove that this could be a safer system and have less of an environmental impact. And Brussels also provided park space for this depot. 50% of this pilot project was funded by the EU Straight Salt program. As you can see, this serves about 12 square kilometers, and from an environmental gain standpoint, there was a 60% reduction in total mileage per stop, 24% reduction in carbon emissions, and it eliminated 900 kilometers of van movements within the city center each week. Great thing about this kind of depot is that it truly is mobile. If one location doesn't work, you could always take it somewhere else. However, these splashy cargo cycles became an easy target for thieves, and about 3 months later, this pilot project had to be canceled due to multiple thefts. But we can learn from other cities that have successfully launched the use of cargo cities for their delivery systems. Third recommendation we're going to look at are parcel lockers. These were developed in response to e-commerce. An individual orders a good online, you pick a convenient location, and then you're notified with a secure code when it's ready for pickup. Amazon, DHL, and InPost have all successfully launched these kind of programs. In the case of London, these were all over the city. They're in convenience stores, bus stations, lobbies of buildings, and InPost had a space requirement of 5 square meters. So that involves the modular unit itself or the space that the customer uses in front of it. There's 3 cameras that trace all the activity, so it's very secure. And what's great about these is that it's a very fast process. You're not waiting in line to get your package. It's secure because you're tracing the delivery of the package, and they're available 24/7. Another thing is that you don't have to pay anyone to man the station, so costs are pretty low. As you can see, there was a 95% reduction in carbon gas emissions, and that's based from dropping off multiple packages in one location rather than distributing it to different locations. This is primarily a private solution. However, the government has the opportunity to partner with local businesses or private businesses, and they can designate a publicly owned space like a bus station for a location for this parcel locker. And the government can also benefit from advertising revenue. So for these recommendations, we looked at the regulation and policy factors. So if we're going to restrict truck routes, that could potentially incentivize the use for parcel lockers. For funding models, if it's a public model, we can look at the city of Brussels helping launch this pilot program. We looked at different cargo types, so perishable, non-perishable, weight, and size. And finally, the different distribution models, so business to customer, business to business, and a mix of both. So we completed phase 1 for the client. We reviewed best practices around the world, we assessed different types of distribution centers, and we looked at regulation, funding, and distribution models. Phase 2 is our recommendation for the client. And this is where they're going to establish their inputs. They're going to engage their stakeholders, be it private freight companies, local businesses, and members of the local community. They're going to determine which solution is more favorable, and the government should begin tracking freight movement to decide which physical locations can work, and then they can conduct a site analysis. Tel Aviv is struggling with moving goods into and around the city for delivery. We presented 3 recommendations that will help Tel Aviv achieve their goals of improving the last mile freight movement by reducing pollution, reducing congestion, and increasing the efficiency of delivery systems. This is how we envision an improved and more sustainable last mile delivery system for the Strategic Planning Unit of Tel Aviv. Thank you.
When you're describing parcel lockers, you mentioned 95% carbon gas reduction. Can you just elaborate on that? It seemed a bit high.
Yeah, the number definitely looks pretty skewed, but basically when you are taking multiple packages and bring it to one location instead of taking it to different, delivering it to different places, it dramatically cuts down on travel time and standing time, so that's what contributed to that savings.
Watson, I'm wondering if you found any cities where the government put the onus on the companies that deliver these packages to fix these problems, rather than look for these technologies, invest in them, and try to accommodate the same number of the same quantity of commercial activity without really charging or sort of transferring the cost to the companies that delivered those packages?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if there's one answer to that question, and not one company is going to be able to completely take on and make the cost the same. From what we've understood and on our research is that at the end of the day, it's a combination of different strategies. And if a company is able to diversify its offerings, I'm not going to say parcel lockers are the only way that works, or mobile distribution platforms, or micro distribution centers. It's going to take a combination of different factors. But yes, the company is, if they want to be relevant and competitive in that marketplace, they're going to need to put some investment, but there needs to be some teamwork going on both sides.